Welcome to another episode of Data Gurus. I'm really excited to introduce you to Eugene Murphy, who is the founder and CEO of Indeemo. Welcome, Eugene.
Thanks for having me on the podcast, Sima. I'm really looking forward to this.
Thank you. You have such an interesting background in terms of how you actually got into market research. And, before we dive into the company and what you guys do, just love to share with the listeners a little bit about your background, because I think it's unique in that you didn't, well, a lot of people say they fell into market research when they were younger, but they didn't necessarily come in with a technical background. So please share a little bit of your background.
Well, with some meandering story. Looking way back, look, I've got a degree in engineering. I started out my career in investment banking technology. So I was working in one of the large investment banks in London doing in their technology department. So kind of started off as a systems administrator and then a business analyst and a project manager. And then I meandered into product management.
Mm-hmm.
We were in the JP Morgan spin-out called Market Access, since become a public company. So I spent a few years there as a product manager. And that's what really got me into product, actually. So that was an awesome 2 years. We took it from kind of 4 to 40 people in London, and it was moving at 100 miles an hour. So it was kind of my introduction into technology. And then over that time, I was over and back from London to Ireland, who was with my wife, Caroline. So moved back to
Nice.
Ireland for love, ditched the
Okay.
banking, ditched the technology. And I set up kind of an architectural design consultancy. So I went back to my engineering roots. We kind of went designing houses and buildings for a number of years. Along the way, I had 4 kids,
Wow.
and they were kind of the inspiration for where we're sitting here now today, right? So kind of had a bit of a father the bride moment, if you've ever watched that Steve Martin's movie. But I was
Yes.
sitting on the sofa one night, and
Okay.
my 4-year-old Kira, she's my oldest, she came in and she said, "Daddy, I'm off to school next year." And I'm a big girl now, and I had this kind of life passing by moment.
Oh gosh. Yes.
And I was like, holy crap, I've just forgotten the first 4 years of her life, and she's awesome. And they're awesome.
Oh, yeah.
So this thing was in me about how do I record all these moments,
That's
right?
really amazing. I love that
Okay.
story. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I got into this kind of, initially started writing poetry, rhyming couplets about everything the kids had done. But the kind of idea was swirling around in my head, and is like, how could we morph this kind of concept of journaling and diaries with a private social network? So we're on our phones capturing all these moments, sharing them,
Right.
but they're getting lost in the threads.
Mm.
And how could we have a safe private space for families to kind of connect and have this walled garden and share moments? So that was the genesis for the company that ultimately became Indeemo. So we called it Tweakaboo,
Okay.
tweets, peekaboo, kind of small messages around your kids. And so we leapt into that, wife, very patient wife, 4 kids in tow. And we kind of set up this private social networking for families, helping them capture and share real life moments all over mobile, of course, all in video and images. And obviously that led to a few pivots along the way. And here we are today with Indeemo.
What a great story. I love the fact that the inspiration was something personal,
Yeah.
because it just gives you the passion and it fuels you every day in terms of what you're trying to accomplish, as it relates to a personal pain point. Before we dive into demo, I wanted to just ask you a question. What is it about product, or what was it about product that you loved? Because we don't necessarily in the data and insights ecosystem don't necessarily think about product as a legitimate function. Not everybody. I'm just saying generally, it's
Mm.
not a common function.
Yeah, it's very interesting, right? So I guess it's problem solving is creative.
Okay.
So I think I love my role at the moment because every day is a different challenge, and we're in such a dynamic context right now. But it's a problem a minute and it's a solution a minute, right? So I think with
Right.
products, it's a way to kind of really improve people's lives, and it's and have an impact, right? So
Mhm.
and everything we touch now is kind of is product, I guess. It's
Mhm.
digital or physical or increasingly morphing. So I think in that, and customer centricity and user centricity is critical. So like if you're not
Yeah.
focused on product as a business now in an era of digital transformation and AI, you're probably in trouble. Like it's just
Mm.
the only thing that matters, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That experience, that use case for consumers is critically important, and for clients.
Everything.
Um,
Yeah, correct.
so as many founders do, you have pivots along the way. And I know you obviously started with what you talked about in terms of creating this private community and sharing these moments with other families and within your family. What happened after that? Share with us a little bit of your journey and the
Yeah.
pivots.
There's probably a good book in this at some stage, right? So I kind of characterize it as a PhD in persistence is probably what
Okay.
it's been, right? Okay.
Yes.
Um, yeah. So looking back now, it's so look at the time you take the leap, and you there's no reverse gear, right? Um, I keep saying on the team right now, it's just forwards, right? No going back.
Right.
So there was the kind of a Steve Jobs at Stanford moment. I don't know if you've ever watched that video of Steve Jobs speaking at Stanford, but he says it only makes sense looking back in terms of joining dots, right?
Yes.
And it's very, very true today. And I think the thread all the way through Indeemo and from the very startup is kind of moments in real life and
Hmm.
privacy and authenticity, right? So the core proposition of what we're doing today is still the same as what we started out with. So that's really reassuring. It's kind of connecting people
Right.
and capturing everyday moments. So we started out with essentially a private social network for families. We morphed that in with kind of a diary of real life moments and
Mm.
with a printing business on the back end. And it was an awesome product. Like we got 100,000 users, end-to-end solution. Everybody loved it, but we couldn't scale it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and that context was kind of pre-Instagram, really pre-WhatsApp groups. This
Right.
is quite a while, right? So we're like, holy crap, we got a great product, but no product market fit in terms of the business. So the next pivot then was the first pivot, I guess, pivot number one was the brand started reaching out to saying, look, you've got this awesome utility and we've got all these communities of users. Can we kind of
Mm.
partner up? We've got the users, you've got the connection.
Right.
So what was that? So we went into a couple of user generated contents partnerships with a couple of brands, and we're trying to connect the customers with the brands and kind of share moments and have this marketing play. And that's where we kind of built the dashboard and all the kind of capability that ultimately became Indeemo. But a couple of very big deals, brand
Mhm.
managers leaving. They kind of torpedoed.
Okay.
Um, so that wasn't fun. That was your pivot number one, and then that's
Yeah.
not going well. And people don't pick up the phone, and when you're
Yes.
calling looking for cash and things. Um, but along the way, we kind of had the slow pivot, this kind of dawning that the power of moments, right? The power of connecting customers and consumers. And although the marketing teams are biting, we kind of stumbled across market research teams and especially mobile ethnography, right? And that
Right.
was a serious light bulb moment, right? So,
Yes.
um, so we double clicked into mobile ethnography and kind of light bulb went off and set the context that we're living in the social networking era at the
Mhm.
time. Everybody
Yep.
was on their phones addicted, but the industry was still doing focus groups and asking you to log in on a desktop and do a bulletin board.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
It didn't catch it. It was a little bit behind versus everyday kind of use
correct.
cases of social media and other tools.
How people engage, right? And how
Right.
they live, right? So,
Yes.
so we couldn't believe that, right? So everybody's on Instagram and YouTube and Facebook, and the industry was on desktop. So that was pivot number two, right? So
Mm.
we fired up Indeemo. Indeemo came from a kind of a play on indie moments, right? So
Yes.
so in the moment basically so it was all about this ability to get brands into these moments and into the lives and the shoes of the consumers. And look, instantly we knew like we were onto
You
something
hit
like
something.
or
Yeah.
something was there. Yeah. So that was awesome, by the way. And we knew straight away. Right? So you kind of know straight away when this thing is catching fire. Um, yeah, and we kind of it's been up and to the right ever since, thankfully. So a couple of
Good.
pivots and keep going and persist, and you probably
Yeah.
eventually kind of get there, right?
Yeah. PhD in persistence. I like that a lot. And when did you found the company? I just how long has this journey been till now?
Yeah, so it's about a decade, I guess. In Demo, really, the first kind of early days was 2016.
Okay.
Got up and going, yeah. So that's kind of when we did, and first 2 years, and obviously kind of learning the industry,
Sure.
really the product. So that's we've been at it, and it's flying now, right? The last 4 years has been insane. It's been a warp speed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, I'm sure during the pandemic, your business probably soared.
but
I'm sure it was doing well, but I'm sure when nobody could actually see people real life, digital qual exploded.
yeah, because it was elective before then, but we did a blog post at the time saying it's like business continuity for understanding.
Mhm.
So it
Right.
moved it from being kind of maybe we should to it's the only way to
Right.
kind of connect with people. So yeah, no, that was a real kind of inflection point in the industry, I think, right? Yeah.
For sure. For sure. And I think it fundamentally shifted, a lot of the traditional qual to digital qual for a sustainable period of time. And I think structurally it's changed. We're not going back to from digital qual back to in person. Obviously, in person has a use case. Not to say it's ever going to go away, but the share of wallet, if you will, is digital qual.
It is, and if you look at Gen Alpha and Gen Z coming through, they've been on touchscreens since
Yes.
they were born, right?
Yeah.
So, and if you want to be close to your customer, you got to be on mobile, you got to be digital.
Yeah.
Mm.
So let me ask you, for clients, when they engage with Indeemo, what are the different use cases specifically that clients engage with you?
Yeah, so it's evolved massively, right? So I think so we frame this around, we've kind of three different customer personas, right? So
Okay.
we frame it around research focus. So you've got a persona who's focused on kind of market research and qual.
Yes.
I've a persona who's focused on kind of experience and kind of product design.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so experience design personas. And then we have these kind of pharma healthcare personas as well. So that's typically what they use us for. And then there's a kind of a matrix of that is you're either a consultancy doing
Okay.
research with somebody else, or you are you're doing it in-house and you're trying to do it faster, right? So those are the things. So it's everything across the spectrum. It's massively diverse, isn't it? So it's like eh, we've got academia, we've got consultancies, we've got brands. I think what we had to do last year, actually, because it's so diverse, everything from fish tank filters to dialysis, right?
Wow.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Um, so what we did last year, kind of trying to get to the point, right? So we did a series Zoom out and say, look, we've got all these different jargons, all these different methodologies,
Right.
but what's really going on here, right? So ultimately, kind of being an engineer
Mm.
and being outside, I kind of had a first principles kind of a push last year, and ultimately we help our customers sell more stuff.
Okay. Fair
Right.
enough. Yep.
And if you double click into that, you're either selling a good or a service, and then it's all about innovation. So at the core of all this, it's about innovation, right?
Helping clients innovate and build
Help
new products and services.
100%, right?
Okay.
And we believe then, right, that you can't truly innovate unless you've got this really deep understanding of who your customers are,
Mm.
what's their context, where they live, where do they work, where do they shop,
Mm-hmm.
what do they want, what do they need, how they find solutions, how they buy things, how they experience your product or service, right? Um, and what we then did, our thesis then is try and get you as close as possible to these moments
Right.
into the context of their everyday lives. And when you get there, stay there. So stay connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which leads me on to use cases. So what you're looking at is, I would look back. I did find target consumers and understanding ideal product experience, right? How do
Okay.
people choose apparel, like pre-tasking for co-creation and skincare,
Mm-hmm.
prototypes for an automotive brand, utility component manufacturers trying to understand the energy space, shopper journeys, buyer journeys, decision journeys, guest experiences, like employee experiences, absolutely all over the map. It's just trying to understand the customer, a colleague, in multiple different contexts.
And do you think that the video component um creates a deeper connection for the client with the consumer?
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Like I
Yeah.
mean, 100% right. So it's so rich, right?
Mhm.
Now if we went back again, that's kind of probably segues us onto generative AI. But like if you look back 15 months ago, like people hated video, but they loved it, right?
Right.
Okay, love the richness. I hate the work.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Um. So, but it's you see what's in the background. You see who's in the
Right.
background. You've got
Right.
tone of voice. You've got context. It's just incredible, right? So my
Yeah.
whole thesis is, going back to why did the business start? You forget everything.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
we forget everything. So you can't rely on somebody telling you what they did last week, last Tuesday morning for breakfast, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So our thesis is connect with them and then get them to show you in video what
Mhm.
they're really doing.
Mhm.
Okay. And ideally with longitudinal research, get them to repetitively show you what they're
Right.
doing.
Yeah.
And like when you see pattern behaviors repeating over 3 or 4 days on the diary study, like you've just zeroed into the truth.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
The video is rich, it's contextual. It's you put that in front of clients, like they will, you show them 30 seconds of video and it has more impact than 60 slides of PowerPoint and pie
Yeah.
charts.
Yeah. Well, and I think that is the age in which we live in too, in terms of how we consume information, right? There's podcasts, there's
Hmm.
shorts, there's YouTube, and so I can completely see that analogy stick, like 60 slides of PowerPoint versus give me a 30-second highlight reel and I'll get to the point quickly.
Yeah, and the other thing then the word that's coming to my mind then is like video is essentially proof,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you get text openings on a survey, and you know, if I'm sitting here writing big check on R&D, and
Hmm.
my raw data is sourced from text or
Yes.
faceless respondents, I've got doubts. But if
Yeah.
I see lots of videos that triangulate with my analytics and my logs and my stats, I'm like, okay, we're leaning in here. So I think it's the last mile of understanding
Mhm.
that really kind of connects the humanity to the analytics, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious from your perspective. I have obviously have talked to lots and lots of people, and I continue to hear about CX, UX, product innovation being pillars of areas where tons of research is being done. And from your perspective, has the digital component um, increased the volume of that work, or is it just shifted from another methodology?
Yeah, that's yeah, so if we go back to core kind of beliefs and our hypothesis, so every business that's going to be created from now on is going to be partially, if not entirely, digital in
Yes.
nature.
Yes.
That's a truism, right? That's like
Yes.
that's not going to
Yeah.
change. Okay. So what that means then is every customer journey is going to be omni-channel and omni-context. Okay. And then you layer on Gen Z, Gen Alpha coming through, and if they don't like your product, their experiences, they're double tapping and they're gone.
Right. Yeah.
So the pressure it's putting on brands to kind of be relevant and provide a good positive experience or product in every context is immense, right?
Yes. And that's
And then
probably really put more pressure in ensuring what they're doing is on target.
yeah, and it's hard, right? And it's hard. So like, so if you think about a curbside pickup journey and all those touch points along that journey, and you're in Qual, you're talking to somebody about what they did last week. If they're working through memories, you're blind, right? So what you got to
Right.
do is you got to get into the shoes of these
Yeah.
participants, and you've got to kind of be there with them along the way. And that's what we do, right? So
Yeah.
like everybody, my smartphone is my alarm clock, right? It's
Yeah.
everybody's
Yeah.
alarm. Okay. All right.
I
So like
know.
when
Kinda changed that.
you're waking, I know, me too. Yeah. I'm trying to find a good alarm clock, but I can't
Yeah.
get one, right? Actually that's a great product. Next pivot. But
Yeah.
I think, so we're addicted to it and the screen time
Yeah.
is there. So if you want to be connected to your customer, you got to be on the smartphone.
Yeah.
And it's a natural, comfortable way for them to communicate. They're doing it anyway in social networking, social media and messaging. So just
Right.
go there. So
Yeah.
our thesis is you get close to them on that and then let them take you on the journey.
Mhm.
And it's made it harder. And what it's also done though is it's kind of morphed MR, UX and CX into one thing.
Yeah.
And the silos have to break down because your customer doesn't give a crap about your silos,
Totally agree with you.
right?
And
So
let's stop defining what it is. It is just insight across the entire customer journey and product and messaging. Doesn't right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And and one of our capabilities is kind of journey mapping,
Mhm.
and they just love it. This holistic end-to-end understanding of who's the human, what's their context, and what's their journey all the way through
Right.
to giving me money, and do they like what I gave them?
Yep.
Like that's table stakes for every business right now, right?
Right.
And that's what's driving it. So I think we're at this kind of confluence of insights in UX and CX. That's where
Yeah.
we play.
Yeah.
Um, we just think that's going to, like, with the rate of change then, right? This exponential change is going on, like it's
Mhm.
warp speed for brands to stay up. And that's our thesis then about being constantly connected to the customer.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's something that AI obviously kind of tees up, you know?
Yeah, and I wanna get to the AI piece here, but I also wanna ask you, just, I don't know if you saw, I think it was in the SMR report 2023, there was a call out on respondent experience, and if we're not careful, respondents are not gonna participate with us. And I wanna ask you, how is it for the respondents you engage with on the Indeemo platform? Like, why do they participate? Are you seeing them continuously participating? Give us a sense of the respondent experience through your platform.
Yeah. So I tackle that from two different dimensions. One is user experience. The other one is kind of fair pay, right?
Yeah,
And transparency.
yeah,
That's three dimensions. So see, where we were different is we had built a social networking app, and that was essentially like Instagram.
right.
And our first users were grandparents.
Wow, that's
Okay,
pretty
think
amazing.
about it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So our for pivot number one was all about creating this thing, make it super seamless so that grandparents could use it with no tech support. So
Mhm.
our user experience is super. No, there's bugs along the way, right?
Sure.
But I think it's like 98.6% of respondents go through and we never hear from them.
Okay.
Okay. So you have to have this really intuitive user experience, first of all, because if the user experience sucks, they're gone,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And there's a whole debate then about is it native or browser? Like it has to be native, logged in
Mhm.
24/7. That's critical as well from a product perspective. The second thing is why are they taking part is a couple of things. So it's money, right? Ultimately, right? So
Yeah.
they want to get paid. Um, I think in Qual, our average diary study in the States is $100, 125,
Mhm.
$150 a week. That's decent pay
Mhm.
for somebody to kind of genuinely bring you into their lives and show you what's
Yeah.
going on. So I hear stories about 10 cents a minute on surveys.
Yeah.
Like, who is the person that's giving me feedback for 10 cents a minute, right?
Right.
I probably don't want to buy the insights from that
Mhm.
purchase. Okay.
Mhm.
And the third point then is sometimes they just want to be heard. So we
Right.
deal with healthcare providers. They never pay an incentive ever because actually what it says from a brand perspective is I actually genuinely give a crap and I'm listening and I want to
Right.
hear your voice. So in healthcare, especially where we've got clients engaging with their members and their customers, just the ability for somebody to truly listen and factor in your individual voice of one
Mhm.
into your roadmap, like that's super compelling. So it almost morphs into loyalty when the
Mhm.
brands are doing it right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
And
interesting in
yeah,
healthcare, it's like, I mean, not to minimize brands having to sell more products or,
yeah.
more chocolate or milk or whatever, but in healthcare, we're the need to share information from a consumer or a medical practitioner really could make a difference in terms of somebody's longevity. And that's that's very cool that you can enable that.
Like that is life saving stuff. So we've
Yes.
got a couple of projects where they won gold medals in the UK, but there's one project there on throat cancer. It won some Aura Award and MRS awards several
Yeah.
years ago. But you know, like the healthcare industry is still because the FDA says, this is my understanding, because the
Sure.
FDA said interviews are a great way to understand patients. Everybody should do interviews, but
Mhm.
like you need to like what a patient will tell you sitting on the edge of their bed at
Yeah.
10 p.m. on a Tuesday night, talking into their smartphone when there's nobody else in the room. They will
Yes.
never tell to another soul,
True.
right?
Yeah.
And like we are absolutely confident that the research that takes place on this platform is actually changing, if not
Mm.
saving lives. So we're super proud of the healthcare use
Yeah.
case. Anybody in healthcare listening to this podcast, like you should invest in these kind of digital ethnographic approaches because
Yes.
the only way to truly understand and empathize
Right.
with the people whose lives you need to help, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, AI. Obviously,
Yeah.
it's helped everybody, but particularly in making digital qual more digestible, I would imagine in some ways in terms of speed to insight. Share a little bit about how it's been integrated into Indeemo, and then let's talk about what we think the future looks like.
Um, one of the future. So it's a game changer, right? Yeah. So how have we integrated it? So AI has been in there for years, right? But I think
Mhm.
it's just supercharged in the last 12 months. So yeah. So data comes up the pipe in video. We push you through video transcription. We're putting it
Mhm.
through optical character recognition, and then we're basically making it available to the clients to use generative AI to write the prompts and do the analysis.
Nice.
Right.
Okay.
Um, it's just unbelievable, right? So, like, if you go back, we did a lot of research at the start of last year, pre-AI, this love-hate relationship with video. They loved it, but they hated us, and there was drudgery for all the
Sure.
Qual researchers listening.
Right.
But what generative AI does means you can now do it at scale.
Mhm.
Like our default positioning now is that all Qual must move to video,
Mhm.
right? It's super rich. You can trust it. You can see
Right.
the face of the human. You can see them standing in that utility room or shopping in your store.
Right.
So it's just a really authentic, reliable way to kind of understand people and products and experiences. And the generative AI just makes it really easy to kind of do it at scale now. So we're all in on that at the moment, and it's changed the work experience as researchers.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it's a really exciting shift.
Now, or do you guys provide the service of um, writing the prompts and querying the data for clients, or are you enabling clients to do that themselves?
Uh, we're coaching them, and we're kind of empowering them.
Okay.
We're letting them off. So look, our big thesis is and we get on the calls, is it going to replace my job? Right.
Mm,
So not at
yeah.
all. Not at all. It's a supercharger. It's like an exoskeleton.
Yeah.
So we're spending a lot of time now trying to get our clients to transition
Mhm.
and lean in and embrace. And the key thing then is how do we kind of create prompting standards
Right.
um, that they can scale across their team so that everybody's kind of adopting consistent approaches
Right.
and that you're kind of getting consistent outputs across the business. So we're in the trenches with the clients right now, kind of doing these master classes, these workshops. We have a
Mhm.
PhD and strategists here on staff to kind of teach them to fish in a really, really
Mhm.
efficient way. Increasingly, they want more kind of consultancy around coaching, um, around assisting with prompt design. So that's something we're doing now. We're kind of throwing
Mhm.
on this ability to provide them with a fast track into good prompts, basically, so they can not have to climb as much of the learning curve
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that it's like the Meghan Trainor song, it's all about the prompts.
Yeah.
Right? Like
Isn't it?
yeah, it is. That's what it feels like it's coming down to. Like you get good quality data, right? And the concern I think that people have within brands is if somebody creates a different way to query the data, does the answer come out differently than another way another person does queries the data? And you want to create a foundation of common language and understanding of what the research says. So I think we're in a new era where to your what you're doing is being able to consult with clients to say, let's get a kind of base foundation that we all agree to as how we query the data. Is that a fair way to say it?
Yeah. So if I zoom out and zoom in again, right? So for kids that are just about to go off to university, I keep telling them like that the future skill is the question, not the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So,
Yes.
right. So,
Curiosity is back.
right. So so like the best question wins
Yes.
because the data's all out there and it's all baked into the models now at this stage, right?
Yeah.
So, so from a researcher's experience perspective, then what that means is you spend more time living in the question,
Yes.
right? It's like Einstein's 55.5.
I
I
love
don't know the
that.
full quote, right? But it's like,
Yeah.
give me a problem to solve. I'll spend 55 minutes thinking about the right question and I'll, whatever. I must go back and remember that quote, but it's kind of
Right.
in that zone. So like, you've got to be very patient
Mhm.
in in composing the right question and
Yeah.
providing the right context and structuring that and iterating and going in because the answers come in seconds.
Yes.
So there's a real kind of inversion of skill set here across the industry in terms of people they must embrace it. If you're watching this, you're still on the fence on AI, you have to do it because it's like, a house with electricity and a house without electricity, right?
Right.
So it's
Exactly.
just
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
But we're kind of very heavily leaning in saying the clients now, we've never told them what they must do ever, but we're telling them they must lean in on AI.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, it's a much more structured, thoughtful question, and it's very iterative. And curiosity is a
Mhm.
huge thing. So we tell them to be curious, structured, iterative, but just start off by asking a simple question.
Yeah.
You pick it up in a couple of projects, and it's. Let me tell you why you should do it. We have a PhD in Manchester Metropolitan
Mhm.
University. She's been prompting for 15 months. She's just amazing prompts, right?
Mhm.
But she thinks the PhDs, which normally take 3 years, can now be done in 6 months going forward.
Wow. That's amazing.
So what does that mean for innovation, right?
Yeah.
That's just insane. So
That is
it's a really, really exciting
cool.
time for Qual, and it's definitely time to upskill on the prompting side for sure.
Well, the cool part about this is in a competitive environment for brands, uh, and clients, even agencies, it's really goes back to intellectual curiosity and making sure that you define the problem, right? And we
Mm.
all agree to the problem. And then what are the questions that will give us the answers to the problem? It's refreshing, right? It's not about bolting together research and going back to the 60-page PowerPoint. It's kind of changing the game in a big way.
It's changed the game in a big way, and I think and then you got to be much more thoughtful about the question you ask now as well. So like prompting needs to almost be the first thing you think about. When you're
Yes.
kind of doing your discussion guides and your task design and things like this. So it's really interesting. And again, just when you say refreshing, I think there's going to be, if you're in the shoes of a qual researcher, there's no more summarization, no more
Right.
translation. Yeah, so it's you're much more strategic and thoughtful
Yes.
all the time. So really, really exciting, and like you're getting into data deeper, faster than you ever did
Mhm.
before. Yeah,
Mhm. And then of course, we have the AI moderators, but that's another topic.
another topic. Okay, we're big into empowering humans here and authenticity and reality. That's kind of the last time I heard about synthetic anything was 2007 on Wall Street when they were doing synthetic bonds and instruments. Yeah. So I think, just because technology is there, I think at the end of the day, as a human on the other side of this thing,
Yeah.
we're emotional, we're irrational, we've got feelings. I think where we're staying there anyway, basically. We're talking about empowerment and authenticity. Yeah.
Yep. Eugene, thank you so much for joining me today. Thoroughly enjoyed our discussion, and I look forward to keeping in touch.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to talk to you. Thanks, Emma.
Thank you.